All right, so living with media queries. This is more about how we at Behance. First of all, I'm Alex Lee. I work at Behance, now part of Adobe. Yay, Adobe family. But we build. So we build Behance.net. It's a site with a lot of creative portfolios. And we're essentially there to showcase their portfolios, but we run into the problem of needing or wanting to showcase it in as wide an audience as possible, which means reaching out to all sorts of devices, all sorts of platforms. So we can't just have mobile apps, which we do have. We also need the site to be responsive. In this, we determined early on the best way to do this is not to have separate versions of the site for every single device that's coming out there with way different sizes and formats and all kinds of things. The best way to do this is just to have one site that is going to respond. And so we ran into some challenges trying to get this to happen. And here's the problems that we came up with. First thing you realize when you try to build a responsive site is that you have lots of UI that the users are interacting with, but in order to maintain the UI and have the UI display when they should, hide when they shouldn't, you have to have all these DOM nodes on the page, and then you're using CSS media queries in order to hide and show these things. As soon as you have, I don't know, something like 50 different dialogues on the page, you just get rampant with these style sheets and they just get out of hand, and there's no way to fix that. There's also the problem of behavioral divergence, because we are a design-driven company, as our founder would say. And what that really means is that the design team designs some pretty outlandish behaviors for when certain things start to behave drastically differently. So when you're on the desktop, everybody understands how you use the website on the computer. But once you start shrinking down the form factor, you start shrinking down the screen, the website starts becoming very different. It has to behave differently. And I'll show you that some of that in a bit. And then lastly, the API, DOM's API is difficult. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. So we also wanted something to hide hide the DOM API from the developers. So here's an example. That's an awful resolution. What you see here is essentially the design for our inbox. This is a classic list of messages and a detail on the other side. So you have a master detail view. Pretty understandable to everybody using a desktop. Yeah. But then you get to the mobile. Oh, Jesus. Damn it. There we go. So you get to the mobile view and it becomes drastically different, because you start out on the left side. This is your landing page. You land here and then you have a list of things. You have to click on it to open it up. You're able to scroll through them, but you have to click on it to open it up. When you click on it to open it up, it opens it up into this view that takes over the entire screen. You have your UI completely replaced with an X, and then when you get out of that list view, you have to go back to the same scroll position as you were before. And if you're trying to do this with CSS only, you're going to have a bad time. Let's see. Where's my mouse? Oh, there we go. So this is where we started coming up with different solutions for doing this. The best thing we have is an interaction breakpoint. All an interaction breakpoint is we are separating logically what CSS sees as breakpoints from what JavaScript sees as breakpoints. In the CSS world, it's way more concerned about display. On the JavaScript world, we're less concerned about display and more concerned about at what points in the page do I need to start behaving differently so that the user's interactions are consistent with what their expectation is. So when they see something different, they want to interact with it in a different way as well. So you're going to need a couple of things for this. You're going to need to know which media query you're currently looking at. You're going to need to know when you have entered and exit different media queries. And also you need to respond to all of that and then change the view accordingly. And you want to do that last bit the least. Do not DOM as much as possible. So that's okay. So that's how you would do it with a raw DOM API with Match Media. Match Media returns you an object which has matches. It's a Boolean about whether or not your current media is matching, the media query is matching. And it also has this nice thing called add listener. Note that's add listener, not add event listener. Way to go, Dom. So that's something that we have, but that's kind of tedious. I don't want to have that all over my code. I don't want to have media queries stated all over my code. I don't want to copy that string everywhere. So what we did is we put it in our essentially utility library layer. MVD.js is something that we have. It provides an MVC layer, utilities, tools, great things for us. So what we have is a media module, and in the media module, you're stating as an object a breakpoint name that matches onto a media query, so that when you're going through this, all that the rest of your code deals with is the breakpoint name. So for this, we have defined phone, tablet, and desktop, and that is all that we want to deal with. That helps you just cut off everything else and think about only things as being on the phone or desktop or tablet. And what that also allows us to do is to provide a much better interface for the events. It will, when you cross boundaries of a media query, it will fire the enter or exit events. So that's what we did. Oh, also, as a note, this is all ES6 now. It's nice. Follow it. Get used to it. On the other side of it, so we have half the battle won, which is how to manage all the things that are changing. On the other side, we have to listen to what has changed and provide the correct view for the user. So responsive entities is what we came up with. And responsive entities, they need to be sensitive to media queries, but we should not, the consumer of those entities should not know about them at all. To the consumer of the entity, they are just dealing with any regular thing that they want rendered. So here's what we would like. We would like, just like that, when you saw the message from Eric that said your work is tolerable, one of my favorite messages, you construct a message and you render that message. That's all you want to do. That's all you ever want to really deal with. And you'll note that there's nothing in here about what breakpoint you're at, what media queries you're dealing with. All of that is hidden away by the responsive entity. So this gives us a consistent interface for how to deal with things. Then we have to set up the breakpoints. We're saying, okay, you can use any arbitrary media query in here. So you can do orientation changes. Then you get to the views. So the views are essentially encapsulations of the view, right? The encapsulation of all the behavior that goes along with an entity. That means you can have completely divergent markup, completely divergent behavior, and you can bind them all together in one single entity, one single class object that you throw around. So you can have this is template strings. You can have template strings template out things for you, and I didn't put it in here because it was troublesome. You can just bind whatever behavior you want in this. We have our own views, but you can use backbone views if you have them. So the point at which it all comes back together is the controller. So in MVD, we have a responsive controller that all it does is listen onto the media module that I showed earlier, and that's just fine. It binds onto the media module and then listens for changes as those changes come along. But what you have is a nice statement down here of what maps to what. So in the previous one, we have short and long as different classes of views. here we're saying short and long match to certain breakpoints. So in the case where you are at a vertical breakpoint, you use the short view. When you're in a horizontal breakpoint, use the long view. So that frees us, and that really cuts down at the amount of the different concerns at every different level, so that we have really thin controllers, mostly thin views, because, man, they want a lot of interactions in those views, and really thin models. So we like to keep everything thin. We don't mind having more of everything. Just having thin things also allows for better reusability. So here's the point where I demoed this, and let me see if I can see this. You can also go to this on your phone to look at it. So, is this going to let me click? I don't know if anybody's using their phones to look at this, so I don't want to go away from this. So, here is, there we go. So this page is the same code that I've had before. Let me see if I can show you what the code behind it is like. Ah, damn it, not gonna show me that. It's not gonna show me the right thing. But where's my mouse? There it is. The thing about this is I can rotate this to simulate a orientation change, and as soon as I simulate the orientation change, it changes the view. And the code that actually runs all of that is, if I can find it, yeah, right here. Oh.
I can't pinch zoom. Disable pinch zoom. That was bad.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't think that people would want to zoom into Hello World. So this is transpiled, so it's a little bit different. But essentially, this is the same code that you saw before. You have a media declaration, you have the two different views, and then you have a controller at the bottom that binds them all together. And finally, at the bottom, I don't know if you can actually see that, at the bottom is where it renders the thing, where you just create a message with the body world, and then it just renders it. So, nice clean API for your responsive JavaScripting. Yeah, and I should probably get out of the mobile view. There we go. And that's it. That's it for me. So, questions? Yes?
Match media sounds like key to a lot of...
Yes, match media is the key that provides all the functionality that we would want, but it's part of the DOM API, and it's difficult to manage, right?
But what sort of support is available?
It is supported on, okay, so the Match Media API for JS supported on IE 10 and above. On IE 9, you're able to get media queries, but the Match Media API is either missing or wonky, really strange.
I think you can polyfill it, though. There are
Yeah.
few open source.
There are polyfills.
There seem to be some shims, but they all have kind of caveats.
Yeah. The lucky thing for us is that we have a great deal of influence. Well, because our audience is wholly different. Our audience is very much Safari, Chrome, Firefox at the bottom. So we can say that for IE, the section of IE that is below 9, we're going to either partially support or not really care about. So, yes.
So NBD is NBD.js. Is that open source? Right?
Yes, NBD.js is open source at, let's see, there we go. Wow, it's huge. There you go. Oh, by the way, it stands for no big deal, just saying. Even the JS part is an acronym. We don't take our acronyms lightly at Behance, alright? This is open source. You can find it at that URL, or just search for Behance. It's one of our open source things.
Does it come bundled with the ES6 transport?
No, it does not, because ES6, the ES6 transpiler that the one I was using is from Square, and the transpiler I only heard about it way after MBDJS came out. But I would like to write a version for ES6, except by the time that happens, I will need less than 50% of this library. Because this provides promises. Dominic. But promises, now Firefox has native promises, so it's like, why do I even need my own code? I don't really want it. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, that's it.